It's called decarboxylation. But anyway, look at the size of this peak, and it's all inclusive, all the way out into the higher wavelengths. This is the lower wavelength of UV light, and you're increasing in UV light wavelength this way. But the compound absorbs the UV light because it has double bonds in its rings. I'll show you here. I get some nods here. So okay, cool. Because of the double bonds in the ring that absorb the UV light, but all the cannabinoids are very similar ring structures, so they'll all absorb UV light in a very similar way. So you can actually compare the amount of the cannabinoids by the size of these peaks. The bigger the peak, the more concentrated the compound. So this is THC acid. Look at and you're summing up peak area to quantify. So look at the size of the area of this peak compared to this one and this one. This is THC acid. When you burn it, it turns into THC, which is right here, that little tiny one. Because in nature, THC is present as the acid. You've got to burn it, you've got to heat it up. In a brownie, you'll burn it in the joint to decarboxylate it to turn it into THC. When you do that, this peak will go down to here, and it'll come up over here, because the chemistry has changed. This here is cannabinol, and this is cannabidiol. But see, the proportions are much smaller for the other cannabinoids. This really ticks me off about BC bud, because time and time again, when I look at cannabinoids, I see this huge THC acid peak and virtually nothing else. This is BC bud, this profile right here. This is classic BC bud. It's not medicine. It's not medical cannabis. This is psychoweed. This will make you psychotic. It'll make you schizophrenic if you're predisposed to schizophrenia. This is my opinion again. But unfortunately, we bred cannabidiol out of BC bud, which is an extremely important medicinal cannabinoid. This is THC here. This is THC acid. This little thing here, this little arm, is a carbon atom right there, an oxygen and hydrogen. This is the weakest bond on the molecule. When it heats up, this bond vibrates and it blows off. That blows off as CO2, carbon dioxide. With this arm on, it can't bind the receptor. It's not active. When you take it off, it clamps onto the receptor. It doesn't really clamp on it. It has a higher affinity for the receptor. It's really important. I've gone on ad infinitum about decarboxylation, so I won't today, but it's really important to understand in analytical as well as in baking. Because if you don't fully decarboxylate your THC in your butter or in your brownie or whatever, you're not fully utilizing the THC that's there. You're getting, if you only got half over, you're only getting half efficiency. So I always tell the bakers it's important to heat for a long enough and high enough temperature to decarboxylate all your THC for maximum activity. Everybody wants to know time and temperature. It depends on the raw material, depends on the prep, it depends on a lot of things, so I can't. Around 325, 350, there you go. But for half an hour. It really does depend on the prep. Now, I'm going to go all over the place here. I want to talk a bit about endocannabinoids because that's really what it's all about, the whole friggin' system, which was discovered in the early 1990s by a guy named Raphael Mershoum at the Hebrew University in Israel. He is the father of medicinal cannabis. He knows everything there is to know, but really we've only scratched the surface of this amazing system called the endocannabinoid system that was discovered by finding the receptor that bound THC. Yeah.
I'm sorry, what was the name of that doctor you mentioned again?
The name of the doctor? Raphael Mershoum.
He's mentioned in the handout.
Easy to find on the internet, those YouTube videos.
Yes.
Since the discovery of the receptor, there's been an absolute explosion in the research being done on what cannabis does to the human body. pharmaceutical industry is all over this system. The last count, which is a couple of years ago, there was 120 new compounds they synthesized around the biochemistry, the endocannabinoids. Everything from weight loss to antipsychotics to anti-anxiety drugs. I'm a herbal guy. Although I grovel at the feet of synthetic chemists, I don't believe I'll ever synthesize a cannabinoid. I'd like to be able to, but I don't see the purpose, because I don't believe that synthetics work in biological systems the way that people think they do. We're very, very complex. I don't know why I went on to the endocannabinoids. I know, because I want to talk about something that we often don't think about. The endocannabinoid system is made up of the receptors, the ligands, or the compounds that bind the receptors, and the enzymes that make them up and break them down. And we often forget about the enzymes. There's one they call FAAH. It's fatty acid aromatase hydrolase, something like that. But it's an enzyme that breaks down endocannabinoids after they bind the receptor. Raphael Mershulam, once again, his lab has recently shown that cannabidiol prevents the breakdown, or inactivates this enzyme and prevents the breakdown of endocannabinoids. That means the endocannabinoids will fill up in the receptor junction. That means you'll get more pain relief, you'll get more effect from the endocannabinoids than if you didn't have that enzyme blocked. Very similar to SRIs. Am I getting a lot of feedback off this mic? Am I better off not using it?
Sounds great.
Oh, okay. So the enzymes are really important. And that's where pharma will be all over this too. They'll be finding enzyme inhibitors. The reason I'm really here today is I want to talk to you about standardized grow experiments, or standardized medical grows. It's a rant I've been on for years. Since I began really working with medical cannabis, I believe that it has to be standardized and quality controlled, and it's going to be in an oral prep if it's ever accepted by John and Jane Q, as I call them. And so I've been standardizing cannabis into oral capsules for many years now. Strain specific, and we do all kinds of things with these, mix them with various amino acids and so on, but regardless, standardization is really important if you're going to call it a medicine, and if you're going to, I guess, hit a world market. And maybe that's what I'm after. Maybe I am one of those guys. It's probably my training that makes me do that, but I can't. I've always treated cannabis like I treat any herbal medicine that I started the quality control unit on. There are certain active ingredients and markers that you identify and quantify for quality and standardization, and then you run certain tests on it. You screen it for pesticides, you screen it for heavy metals, and you screen it for pathogenic bacteria, salmonella, E. coli, mold, and yeast, that sort of thing. And it's that standardization and quality control that I've been trying to push around the medical cannabis community for the whole time I've been around. And I have a guinea pig. His name is John Berfellow. He's been to the meetings a number of times. Fell 28 feet, completely shattered his body. I met him when he was full of opiates and a living dead person. He got married last year, has a truck, a house. He's doing very well, and he's only using cannabis for his chronic pain. He's been through 4 surgeries, and 2 post-operative, only using cannabis for pain. And he's one of the most courageous people I've met. He's truly a marvelous human being. But I started to harp to him about standardizing his grow, and he did it last year, and we called it a research project. This is, what is that, Easy Grow Light Tight Silver, it's got on the walls there. I guess you don't want to even show hands how many growers are in the room. I hope I'm entertaining someone. I do want to mention that this is a research project. And in Canada we have what's called the Scientific Research and Development Tax Credit Program. Why do you laugh? Oh, yes. This is the only way that you can get, that I've found, that you can get money from the government to fund cannabis research. It's true. Mark Ware got it all. The guy in McGill University, he's the only one that's got funded to do cannabis research. And what did he do? This is going on the record too, isn't it? Damn it.
Now, I need to interrupt for a sec here, folks. I'm so happy to have Paul here, and we were a little bit delayed. I'm going to go now and start organizing for 420, but I'm going to leave you folk here for another 15 minutes, listening to Paul, hopefully, getting some questions in and stuff, and Gail will wrap up the class for everyone. But once you guys are staying, I'll pick up the stuff because you got a short time for 420, so that would be great. And yeah, thanks everybody for coming. Thanks again, Paul. We'll see you guys outside.
Yeah. Mark Ware got all the money to do cannabis research in Canada. That's my simple mind again.
Sorry, one quick thing. What was the name of that, the government paying system there?
The program?
Yeah.
The Scientific Research and Development Tax Credit Program. Tax credit program is important.
For any industry.
In that program, doing a research project, you take all of your invoices. Say you call this research grow project. It costs you to buy a light, it costs you to buy the stuff you put on the wall, it costs you for all your pumps and so on. You put all those invoices in a pile, you take them to your accountant at the end of the year, who is an expert in the tax credit program, and you'll get 68% of what you spent in that pile back at the end of the year in one check. Okay? Now, I haven't met a grower yet that's not a researcher. Whether you know it or not, you're doing a research project, okay? Because there's a lot in it. You're all trying a new strain, you all want to get the best, and you're all tweaking and researching. Stack up your invoices, and if you don't have an accountant that understands, first, if you do have an accountant, if you don't have one, find one, just for the tax credits, because you're doing a research project. And then you find an accountant that knows something about the tax credit program, or call my accountant who gives courses in it. And at the end of the year, you take all those invoices, you submit them to the accountant, you write up a 1 or 2 pager on the research project, submit that to the government. You don't give them the details, you just give them an outline, and you get a check. Trust me. Anyway, John, in standardizing the research grow, everything's got to be the same. You got to record everything, the lighting's got to be the same, nutrients, water, and everything. And it's all got to be recorded. And the nutrient that John used is one called Medi-1. This might sound like an infomercial, but I'm not a businessman, trust me, but this is a really good product, and it's got my name on it, by a company called Green Planet Nutrient in Vancouver. What's really good about this product is it's all organic, and it's a one-step nutrient. You use the same thing in flour as you use in veg. And it turns out quality medical cannabis. This is John's Kush overlaid with PPS government cannabis here. This is the THC level in government cannabis compared to John's. Remembering that the peak area is directly proportional to concentration. This is 12%, this is around 25, 30%. It's in the high 20s. I don't want to say 30. Oh, this is a little tidbit of interest. If you leave cannabis on the shelf for a long time, or in a poor container, the THC goes down from the blue to the red to the green to the pink, and the cannabidiol comes up from the blue to the red to the green to the pink. That's cannabinol. Okay, so THC breaks down, turns into cannabinol. The cannabinol make you paranoid, make you afraid, get you scared. Sativas tend to have more cannabinol than indicas, which tend